The second matchup on the UFC 300 prelims is between Bobby Green and Jim Miller. Doing the research for this fight, it's a lot harder to pick who's going to win this one because as of right now, I think Bobby Green is kind of an unknown. I mean, 3 months ago, he just got absolutely, murdered in the octagon. The ref just let him go out brutally, just take so much unnecessary damage and just eventually went out cold. So that was a lot of damage to take 3 months ago. And based on his style and Jim Miller's style, it's really just a super interesting fight. I mean, I'm going to get into it a little bit more here, but Jim Miller, this is more on like their styles and everything like that, which is why it makes it very complicated on who to choose to win this one. Because Jim Miller's been getting wins, but it's like Donald Cerrone at what, like 40 years of age, Nicholas Mata, Eric Gonzalez. He lost to Alexander Hernandez at 155, who I think he should probably stay at 155, but he always goes to 145 for no reason. Beat Jesse Butler and beat Gabriel Benitez. So he's beating like the lower ranked guys, which is kind of, I don't want to say a red flag, but it's like one of those things where it's he's definitely getting a definite step up in competition here with Bobby Green. Alexander Hernandez fight. Hernandez, he was landing on Hernandez at points, but Hernandez's output was just so much more than Jim Miller, especially as the fight went on. And Hernandez was throwing a lot of straight shots. Very similarly to Bobby Green, where he was just kind of trying to stay out of range and just catch Jim Miller coming in, because Jim Miller likes to throw some hooks and things like that, and he brings his face forward. So Hernandez was able to hit him down the middle there, and that's what kind of worries me in this fight. And then I was watching Bobby Green's last couple fights. I only watched the fights where I can actually get something out of it. So I didn't watch the Jalen Turner fight because Jalen Turner is just such a rangy guy. I wanted to find a guy that had like a similar style to Jim Miller. I did not watch the Grant Dawson fight because that fight ended extremely early because Grant Dawson apparently doesn't have a chin and got hit with a straight left immediately and went out. So thank you, Grant Dawson. Made me mess up my pick for that fight. But I was watching the Drew Dober fight, and Drew Dober was getting pieced up very badly. We know how good Drew Dober's chin is, especially in that first round. Bobby Green looked really good. But after the first round, he started slowing down, and it was a lot easier to get him up against the fence to where Drew Dober was able to eventually knock him out with the left hook as he was trying to circle out. And I can see Jim Miller doing the same thing. I can also see Bobby Green just staying out of range, like keeping to the body, because that's what Hernandez did. He eventually went to the body and started slowing down Jim Miller a little bit, and that was putting a really big effect on Jim Miller. So if he can start investing to the body early enough in this fight, maybe backing up and staying out of range and landing those shots as Jim Miller goes in, I think it will work here. It's just Bobby Green, 3 months after getting brutally KO'd, just taking so much unnecessary damage at 37 years of age, which is something you don't want to see. And Jim Miller's pretty durable. I mean, when was the last time Jim Miller got finished or took like a stupid amount of damage? I mean, has he, was it a knee to Dan Hooker in 2018? Oh no, Sir Charles Oliveira. I mean, he really hasn't taken that much damage in most of these fights, and he's 40, and he's a very durable guy, has a lot of punching power. It's just, you're juggling those kind of things. But I will say, Bobby Green's last few opponents, barring the Grant Dawson fight, Jalen Turner was able to find the chin. Tony Ferguson was able to find the chin early on in that fight before getting eye poked. Jared Gordon looked pretty good against Bobby Green before the accidental head clash. Drew Dober was looking rough in the first round, but eventually found the chin in the second round. Islam Makhachev just took him down and beat him up there. But recently, guys have been finding the chin on Bobby Green, and this is an older Bobby Green as well. He's obviously not as old as Jim Miller, and I do think Jim Miller kind of wants this fight more. I'm gonna say UFC 300. He's been wanting this fight on the card for a very long time, and I think this is a very big moment for him. So I think Jim Miller might want it more. I think outside of the first round, I do get a little bit worried for Bobby Green. I think he needs to just invest as much as he can early on in this fight to the body to slow down Jim Miller, kind of keep that range. And I do think Jim Miller can kind of become a punching bag early on in this fight. However, I do think Jim Miller could eventually find the chin. And I think once he finds the chin, it's going to hurt Bobby Green pretty badly because Jim Miller hits like a truck. Again, like I said, his last few opponents have found the chin of Bobby Green. Jalen Turner, he's a lot rangier, so I get it. Like, it ended a lot quicker because of that. But even Tony Ferguson was able to hurt him a little bit. Drew Dober, he was able to chat his way through it and land shots. And even Jared Gordon, that's the other thing. I think he was supposed to. Didn't Bobby Green say he was going to retire after the Jared Gordon fight, and then the accidental clash of heads happened, and now he's got like a bunch of other fights. So I don't know what necessarily happened there, but he didn't look that great against Jared Gordon, in my opinion. So I have to kind of go out on a limb. The safe pick is to say Bobby Green here by decision, like 29-28 or 30-27, just playing the range game, backing up, circling around, not getting trapped against the fence. However, if Jim Miller gets out of the first round pretty much unscathed, or at least he's not like gassed or anything like that, because if Bobby Green really, I'm saying if Bobby Green really invests to the body and slows down Jim Miller, I think he can really do well in this fight. However, I think outside of the first round, I think we'll see a much slower Bobby Green, a guy who's taken a lot of damage recently. He's going to get pinned up against the fence, and he's going to get caught with like a right or left hook, circling out, or maybe even a straight shot to the matter. I just think Jim Miller's game plan is to push him up against the fence and kind of catch him when he circles out. And I think that's a much easier thing to do outside of the first round if Jim Miller, not saying that he's not going to make it outside the first round, because, again, he's very durable. If Bobby Green wins this, it's going to be by decision. If Jim Miller wins this, it's going to be by finish. That's what I will say. I'm going to go Jim Miller by second round TKO. I think I'm just going out on a limb here. Tapology is saying Miller by a finish as well. They're saying submission. I guess he could rely on the wrestling a little bit more. Bobby Green has a pretty good ground game, so I don't know maybe he can mix it in a little bit more, hold him against the fence, kind of just close that distance off from Bobby Green. He could do that and just wait for Bobby Green to circle out and then punch when he is circling out to try and catch him. I'm going Jim Miller late second or third round TKO here. I don't like the Bobby Green damage he's taken 3 months ago against Jalen Turner. I don't like that. It'll be 4 months when this fight happens, but that's still kind of pretty soon to take. I think career-changing damage at 37 is not something you really want to see. And he took a pretty brutal KO to Drew Dober about a year ago as well. So I'm going Jim Miller by finish in the late second and third round here. Let me know what you guys think about this fight. I think Bobby Green could easily win this fight. I'm going to be honest. It's just more about who gets their stuff in better. I think that's really what it is. If Bobby Green can invest early to the body, I think his style kind of helps him here, but the arms down style, getting trapped against the fence is just not really safe, especially when he tires out a little bit more. He's just a little bit more hittable than he is early on in the fight. And again, the speed I think is just going to be a little bit too much for Jim Miller in the beginning, or I think eventually he'll trap Bobby Green and eventually catch him while he's trying to circle out. So I'm going Jim Miller by late second round, early third round TKO here. Let me know what you guys think about this fight in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.